My neighbor had some trees cut down in his backyard, and I needed firewood for the winter, so I went to his yard to collect the wood and set about splitting the wood in the backyard, and I couldn't get this one particular log split. So he started helping me, and we were sort of tag-teaming the log. I had it propped against a base on the ground, and I had a steel wedge buried in the top of it. And I would swing a sledgehammer, he would swing a sledgehammer, I would swing a sledgehammer. We were going back and forth, hitting it as hard as we could. A piece of the sledgehammer broke when the hammer hit the wedge. And that small piece of the sledgehammer shot out from between the wedge and the hammer and essentially shot me in the chest.
I was extremely nervous, ran out to the backyard to find my husband laying on the ground, in and out of consciousness. The EMTs were extremely fast-acting. They were extremely conscious of what was going on around them. They were so calm and easygoing that being naive was very helpful at this point, because I really didn't know that anything was wrong, because since he was laying on his back, he wasn't bleeding profusely. He was bleeding internally.
I heard my wife giving my medical history, and I was correcting her when they were asking me questions. And then I remember them putting me on the stretcher and running from my backyard up to the front of the house where the ambulance was.
The driver, the paramedic David, was the driver, and he was by far the most amazing man. He was so calm, and he kept me calm. And he just said, "Don't worry, we're going to get your husband there. Everything will be fine. We're working, we're going to get them there as safely as possible."
When I arrived at Presbyterian, I was a little confused as to where I was. But I remember rolling out of the ambulance and into the trauma bay. And I remember my wife at the corner of the stretcher, and they took me one way and her the other way. Sorry. That was the hardest part for me.
He just looked at me with a very touching gaze and said, "I love you." And I was like, oh. They moved me off to the other way and took him back.
If I didn't receive care immediately, I wouldn't be here sharing my story. There were several stages along the way where things had to go perfectly right for me to survive. I get asked the question about whether this changed my life often. And the simplest answer is yes. I don't think you can go through it without it changing your life. I've always been very close to my wife and kids and family, but certainly it makes me more so. As far as in my professional life, it gave me a very keen sense of what people go through after they leave when I'm taking care of them, what their families are going through, and what happens when they leave the hospital, because I do a lot of inpatient medicine, and we don't see a lot about the aftermath of these sort of critical illness hospitalizations, and it really gave me a sense of where these people are going, what's happening to them, what's happening to their families, and how to talk with them about that and try to help them prepare for what's next.
His accident, it took a lot of meaning in my life. Just day to day, actually. I have a lot of what ifs that come up, which I try to push aside, because I'm so grateful that he made it through the surgery just fine, and he's here with us today and healthy and back to his normal self. But in my life, it just gave me a greater realization of how much I depend on him, and how much I need him, and how much our kids need him, and just how fortunate and lucky we are that he was taken to such an amazing place to receive treatment, so that they could keep him with us.